the real Israelites. They stole that from us. We are the real Israelites. There's 12 tribes. Jamaicans, the Haitians, the Cubans, Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans. We are the 144,000.
Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
Right, so we see that Christ said he came to fulfill. Then we see later on, Acts 3 and 18, what is identified of what he actually fulfilled.
Acts 3, verse 18. But those things which God hath shewed by the mouth of all his prophets, that Christ should suffer.
What?
That Christ should suffer. He hath so fulfilled.
So the things that Christ did was fulfill the suffering and his obedience to God.
Right.
In order for him to be that clean and pure sacrifice, right? He obeyed God and he fulfilled those things that he suffered.
Okay, so say he fulfilled the obedience.
His obedience to God.
Okay, all right, his obedience. Okay, I misheard you then.
Yes, sir.
You said the obedience to God, and then I was going to go.
The obedience?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, he kept God's commandments, the Mosaic law.
Okay. So if he fulfilled that, that doesn't technically mean we don't have the obedience.
What? We must also do what he did.
Okay. But usually if someone fulfills that, that means they already accomplished that, which means I don't have to live to that extent of being obedient because it's already fulfilled.
Well,
that's why I was curious about the verbiage you use, right? His obedience or the obedience.
Well, even if we were to use that, right? Let's go on that path and speak to the fact of damn, you just said something so important. He used the term accomplished. He accomplished it.
Okay.
Right? Jesus Christ goes on to tell us, and even his apostles tell us, to be Christ-like.
Right.
Yeah. You understand? To walk as he walked.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wouldn't that be in every which way possible?
Yeah.
Right. So if Jesus Christ is keeping the Mosaic law, he accomplished it. That means that I can also accomplish it. He showed us to be an example. That's what the author of Hebrews says. He came down here and was put in the flesh like us to show us this is possible. You can do this. He went through the temptations the same way we go through temptation.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
So you mean accomplish being like obedient to God, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Right? Now, we see John the Apostle in 1 John the 2nd chapter. He says, let's get it.
John 2nd chapter?
1 John chapter 2.
1 John chapter 2.
It's Rob, right?
Rob, yeah, what's up? R-A-B. You said what?
R-A-B?
Yeah.
First John chapter 2, verse.
Let me go, man.
Verse.
You can read just verse 1 and 2.
My little children. 1 John chapter 2, verse 1.
You're right. And earlier I think we said something about we would end it at a certain point. But you did ask more questions and stuff like that. I'm all about answers.
I was just curious about it.
Okay, all praise to the Most High. Well, what this says is that I tell you not to sin, but if any man do sin, then we have an advocate named Jesus Christ, right? So because Jesus Christ did no sin, right, that's what gives him the ability to be that perfect sacrifice and to advocate on our behalf. That's why we can share in his righteousness. That's where grace comes from. It's not intentionally sinning or sinning knowingly and saying, oh, God's going to give me grace. I can't go out and buy a burrito right now on the Shabbat, right, and say, oh, God's going to give me grace when I know that I'm sinning. That's ridiculous.
You don't think sin is knowing, though? If I don't know any better, is that sin?
That's ignorant sin.
Okay.
Yeah. Knowingly sinning and ignorantly sinning are two different things. Jesus Christ he says that people that do it in ignorance will receive fewer stripes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree.
But they still gonna get judged.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Hey man, listen. It was nice talking to you, David. You know what I'm saying? You live in West Palm Beach, I'm assuming? Yeah. Okay, all praise to the Most High, man. All right, we show up to your church, you gonna show up to ours?
Can't give you that promise. I can't give you that promise. Can't give you that promise.
What would deter you from showing up to ours? That's fair. I want, if you don't mind, I do have another question for you. This is not theological.
You gonna ask me my ethnicity again?
No. What is your perspective on what Marvin Sapp did, or what is just now being propagated? Like, because I heard he did it like a year ago, but now everybody's talking about it. Marvin Sapp, the guy that locked the doors on people to get $40,000.
Oh, close the doors.
What do you think about that? Why not?
Because when you're giving, it's supposed to be from your heart. You can't force them to give, right?
Peter didn't force people to give. He told them to go sell everything they got and bring it to me. I'm a distributor.
That's not forceful.
He told them to do it.
Yeah. But when I lock the door and say you can't leave, that's forceful. He never told them you can't leave until you do that.
No, he told them that when he told Ananias and Sapphira that when they brought a lesser portion, though, why did they lie to the Holy Spirit and then they died? The reason I would look at it similarly is because these people are coming into this building, right?
Yeah.
Right? Now, regardless of Marvin Sapp's theological perspective, right, these people are coming into his building, right? Or actually, he was visiting, but they're coming into this building and they're receiving spiritual things. Why are they withholding from the ministry of God? Paul says that if I give you spiritual things, then for me to reap corruptible things should be nothing. So that's why I would actually, maybe his method in today's perspective was a little aggressive. But at the end of the day, really what he was trying to do, according to what they believe and how they do things, he was trying to save those people's lives.
I think the method
because they're withholding from God.
Because remember, what's the brother's name? The one in Atlanta for the big church up there. What's it called? 1914?
I have no clue.
Either way, he met this lady. She was homeless. She just got here, and he told her to come to the church. She showed up to the church, and then he told everyone. He said, "This lady followed. She came here trusting the Lord," and then he asked everyone to bring just money to help her get on her feet. And these people gave out of the kindness of their heart. I think that's different than telling someone they have to, and also telling them that you can't leave until you do.
Well,
because then you might receive it, but the intent of it isn't there. I think all of it comes down to intent. Just like this girl earlier, she said, "I believe," but I don't think the
I feel you.
Yeah.
Those two stories differ though, because one would be a tithe and one would be an alm. Alm is also known as a free will offering in the Bible, right, or similar.
But you still believe you have to tithe.
Absolutely. So does the church. It's an absolute necessity. Even Paul teaches how absolutely necessary it is. He actually, even the church of Corinth, he said, look, I told the church of Macedon that you guys will give a gift. If I hear that you don't give a gift, you're not going to want to see me. That's what he told. He said it's going to be worse than last time.
Paul said that?
To the church of Corinth. So essentially, Paul forced the church of Corinth to give a gift to the church of Macedon. See what I'm saying? Because it's essential that we support each other. It's essential that you give to the ministry of God.
I agree.
So that's why I say, according to the confines of what they teach, according to the confines of what they teach and what they believe, if you're walking into this building and then you're not giving, you're withholding from God, then that in itself can be considered a sin.
Do you believe tithe is only money?
Of course not. It's a tenth of your
increase.
Your possession increase. So in today's world, unless you again own farms and just all different types of assets, then majority of the time a tithe is going to come from your money. Yeah.
Do you believe someone's time could count?
As a tithe? I don't see that in the Bible. No, it can be considered a spiritual sacrifice, absolutely, but not a tithe. No.
So what about other resources outside of that?
Like I just said, if you're someone, like I said, if you're someone who has other assets, or I'll even say it like this, right? Because we have new moon feasts and Passover and stuff like that as well. And I know these brothers a lot of times do something similar to what's known as a potluck, right? Yeah. So we'll go around the room and say, hey, who's going to bring the cups? Who's going to bring this? Who's going to bring that? Now you're giving something, right? So the point is you have to give to the church. You feel me? Yeah.
So if you came to me during this potluck and said you have to give these cups,
yeah,
you think that's still count?
Yes, because we can't appear before the Lord empty-handed.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if they're forcing it to me, you think that God...
I'm saving your soul, because if you show up to God empty-handed, you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's the scripts.
And rob God.
But like I said, man, I know you got to go, bro.
Yeah.
You feel me? I just want to know what your perspective was on Marvin Sapp. You know what I'm saying? You shared it, so I appreciate that.
To me, I think it was the wrong method. I think the idea behind it might have been from a good place.
Yeah, like I said, in today's perspective, it was a little aggressive. Yeah. It was a little aggressive for sure. That's fair, though.
You would have still got the same outcome. And
nah.
I don't think you have to take it to
hell no. Nah. Definitely not today, and definitely not in the black church. There was another pastor that was just talking about that. About how 80% of the black church today is made up of women. Black men are leaving the church because of how much the church actually takes away from them, etc. You know what I'm saying?
You think it's that, or it's a lot of the pandering and not actually following the word?
I don't think people would have a problem with giving if they were actually receiving something in return. Right. Because at the end of the day, going back to what Paul told the church of Corinth, you reap from me spiritual things. What is it for me to reap a corruptible thing? You understand? So if they're not receiving the spiritual food that they need, because what did Jesus Christ say? Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. If they're not really providing the words of God and the food that comes from God, then someone is not going to be truly compelled to stay there and worship there, because the Spirit of God no longer dwells there. Raise your hand if you have a Confederate flag in your bedroom. Woo. Look, he smiled. Got him. You don't know one person with a Confederate flag? How do I know more people with a Confederate flag? Of course, I know black men that got Confederate flags in their yard.
What about you? You seen him? Philip Anthony Mitchell.
I want to say his face looks familiar, but I can't speak to his name.
Okay, I was curious about his approach.
What did he do?
Earlier. He just explained what was going on, and then he just asked people to give.
With the woman. Okay, got you. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I think that more aligns. It's not forceful. You're just asking.
You know what?
Your community to come together and support like you're called to do.
You know what I find funny? Right? I think it's also a sign of distrust a lot of times. Right, especially now today when it comes to ministries and stuff like that, people are less likely to give to the ministry because they're skeptical about who it's going to, what it's being used for, truly.
There's a lot of them misusing it.
You're right. I agree. Okay. You're right. But then you have a woman who you clearly see needs the help, and you can be a part of making sure it's allocated in certain ways that you see a fit, right? So that perspective of, they gave to the woman, but how many people are giving to that church and making sure the lights stay on? Because that's another thing, is people really don't. The reason I can speak to this is because I'm a part of a ministry that owns or rents a building, and I've been a part of the short end of the stick when it comes to receiving contributions, and I've had to come up out of my rent money to keep that motherfucker open. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to certain pastors, and then you blanket it, I don't know what he's doing with the money. And then that nigga is just as broke as you, but he's willing to forsake his home to keep the building open. Now, if I was to lock the doors, what I'm doing is actually going to help you. Now, if you see me pull up with a Bentley, feel free to fuck me up.
Yeah.
You feel me?
But that's what you see a lot of nowadays, man. Especially
that's why you got to try the spirit by the spirit.
Yeah, and I think instead of people finding, I guess, a good church, they just stay there and then they become.
And then they condemn their own soul by not truly supporting it. Because now, going back to intention, if you're not truly supportive in every which way possible, you showing up is great. Maybe you show up to some events. Maybe you volunteer. That's all fine and dandy. But who you going to volunteer and where you going to volunteer at if the building is gone? Buildings are actually important because it gives families the ability to come. Right here, this is for men to come out here to these streets. You feel me? But the building is where women and children can come. They can cook. They can do the daycares. I've seen churches do great things regardless of my agreement or disagreement with their theology. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen daycares. I've seen daycares in churches, and I'm a big supporter of children. And imagine a child growing up in righteousness, right? So that's where I come from as far as, like I said, I just want to talk about the Marvin Sapp thing and see what you thought about that. And I see your comparison with the woman, but I find it funny. A lot of people are more likely to give to an individual, right, than the ministry because they're skeptical and distrusted.
It might not be the ministry, but the way you went about it.
Right. The person. The thing is, a lot of times it's an assumption too, because at the end of the day, if you have no proof that person is doing something mischievous, then for you to feel that way is displaced.
Now, those people tend for a reason, so they have to have some sort of trust in them, right? I think just human nature, right? If I come to you and I say you have to give me this, you're already gonna put your guard up.
Unless I give you a reason as to why it's necessary.
Well, yeah, but everybody got you.
That's fair. Yeah. I told you that earlier. Now look at you.
I agree with you about that.
All praises, man. All praises. But yeah, man, Dave, I don't want to hold you up no more, man. You done been out here for what, about an hour and a half? Appreciate you, man. All praises, man. All praises. I mean, unless you want to continue the conversation, that's up to you.
No, I can't think of nothing else.
You can't think of nothing else?
Hey, my family got 32 churches, bro. I got a big family. We got 32 churches. You can't ask them for nothing. They won't give you nothing. They got 32 churches from New York all the way down to Miami. But BCOG, that's the Bible Church of God of different, cities and states. You can't ask them for nothing. You can't even ask them to pay your light bill for all the money that you give to the church. You see what I'm saying? So what he was saying, that's why the men are leaving the church. Right. And a lot of those churches, guess what? It's only older women, little children, because they with the mother women and effeminate men. That's it. That's all that's in the church. Men that act like women. See what I'm saying? So there's no real men in the church. Men don't want to be in there. It's like, you see what I'm saying? But it's like the real men, it's like they giving, but they won't receive anything but that. You know what I'm saying? So what are you giving to? You know what I'm saying? So, that's a problem with the churches, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's a real big problem.
It's not what it used to be.
I don't know. I feel like, I'm about to say, I feel like it's always been that way, bro. It's always been that way. I'm 35, bro. You know what I'm saying?
I'm talking about beyond our life.
I say the only sincere person that I've known as far as the pastor is my dad. You know what I'm saying? Is my dad. As far as he's not worried about, if you don't give, you don't give. It is what it is. He just gonna, if you feel it on your heart to give, I mean, that is what it is. But he gonna make sure his doors stay open. You know what I'm saying? But that's just like this brother was saying as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's just, he's not gonna force you to give. You know what I'm saying? But it's just that's what's going on in the church, though, man.
Without it being forceful versus your intention.
Listen, people are going to disagree with me because I agree with what Marvin Sapp did. I think it was necessary for him to lock the doors to show people how important it is for you to give to the ministry. Again, in today's world, it was extremely aggressive. At the end of the day, when you read the Bible, Paul was collecting that money. And you better have had it when he showed up. I'm just letting you know, that's like I can't wait for you to read that story about when he said, look, I told Macedon, you're going to show up with a gift. You better show up. Don't make me look bad.
It all started from a conversation. Being alone had me too impatient. Had to tell her about my situation. We on the phone hella long, wonder where the day went. Her mama Judah, father Benji, know I love Jamaicans. It was a vibe, wasn't tripping off the love making. She like, you fly, I'm surprised how you not taking. Told her the truth, I denied Satan. Been separated for a year and honestly I'm getting tired of waiting. It's frustrating, got me about to leave. I got a wife but she don't believe, she deceived. On top of that we always fighting and we hardly speak. To me you like a breath of new fresh air, with her I hardly breathe. I understand if you wanna leave. She played a G and said I'll be the sister that you need. I'm here for you as a sister in your time of grief. A black man trying to find peace, I'm happy that you found me.